The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
And when I started running, I suppose I didn't stop, and when I got the chance to go, I said I should have gone, so I opened up.
We're only the small little fish out there, so we are, and we're trying hard to make it through. But it's hard to get the breaks when you're the smaller fish.
Because I love this county so much, you know, and it's just, I'm delighted that the lads did it for the people of Waterford today, because like I'm heartbroken.
Welcome to the GAA Hour on a Monday. It's me, Wooly, in studio, which today there's nobody with me, so I'm on my own, but you don't have to despair. Shane Mulligan is coming up soon, and so is Andy McEntee. He was in Moore Park when Meath hammered Laois at the weekend, and I was there as well, so I'll talk to him in part two. But we've Shane Mulligan coming up soon, because he said at the end of his speech, light the bonfires, we're coming home. It's basically, this is Mullinalaghta's see you in coppers moment. So I'm looking forward to talking to Shane, because it was absolutely sensational stuff in Tullamore yesterday. Like, I mean, I think we're all pretty familiar with the Mullinalaghta story now. Population of 447, half a parish, only one or two pubs in the whole town, playing Kilmacud Crokes, whose membership is about 10 times the entire population of Mullinalaghta. And like, I mean, it's the smallest club in Longford, and Longford is the second smallest GAA county. So like, I mean, when you put this all in context, it's an absolutely sensational story. They won their first county title in 2016, so they've won 3 in a row in Longford now. So in 2016, it was 50 years, I think 50 or 60 years since they won even a county title. Now that's a story in itself, but to come out then in the third year and get the way to the Leinster final, no Longford club had ever even been in a Leinster final, and then to beat Kilmacud Crokes, the Dublin champions. And Portlaoise, I know we beat Kilmacud Crokes in 2004. I think we've lost 8 or 9 times to Dublin champions. So I know how difficult it is to beat the Dublin champions. So for them to do that, a club their size, is absolutely sensational. And in fairness, they looked in a lot of trouble at half time. If you were watching the match, like, I mean, it's just not enough to be going in at half time. It's just not enough with that wind against Kilmacud Crokes. So you think that Kilmacud are just going to run out complete routine winners, but they didn't. They stuck in there, and suddenly when they got the goal, they looked like the only team that were going to win it. Cian O'Sullivan sent off, Kilmacud Crokes' brains completely scrambled, and they didn't even mount a comeback. It was Mullinalaghta that completely finished the stronger team and were well-deserving winners. To be fair, Kilmacud Crokes just didn't do enough. I saw Robbie Brennan say after the game, for whatever reason, we reverted back to type, which we had been doing for the last 3 games. More of a defensive game, keep ball, going backwards with it. And like, I mean, that's what I thought watching it. It was like Kilmacud didn't really try to turn the screw. It's like they got 2 points up, got 3 points up, and they were happy with that. They weren't really flooding forward in numbers like they even were in the first 10 minutes of the game. And they just kept Mullinalaghta in it. And in fairness to Mullinalaghta, they stayed in it. And then when they got the penalty, that was it. All bets were off. But, as my father always says, maybe their name was already written on it, because it was the 50th anniversary of Longford's only senior provincial title. So like, I mean, when you hear little things like this, it is a little bit like, Jesus, maybe it was just their year, and that was always the way it was going to go. Probably one of the funniest things, well, it shouldn't really be that funny, but David Nestor was quoted after saving Craig Rogers' penalty, and it was another Rogers, Gary Rogers, who scored the penalty. And David Nestor said after saving Craig Rogers' penalty, which was a brilliant penalty, and David Nestor guessed the wrong way, and he said afterwards, well, at my age, I think he's into his 30s, 34, he says, I can only really dive properly one way, probably just springing off his right foot and dive to the right. So Gary Rogers gets the penalty then, and I suppose David Nestor is thinking, right, well, I've planted that seed out there now, so Gary Rogers is going to go to my left because he thinks I can't dive that way. So Gary Rogers double bluffed David Nestor, who fell for his own bluff and went the wrong way, and it went into the bottom left of the net from the penalty taker's point of view. And in fairness to David Nestor, he shouldn't feel probably too bad, because I don't think he would have saved that penalty. It was low and hard, and it was a brilliant penalty under that kind of pressure. Gary Rogers said after game, I said, yeah, that side. I always pick a different side anyway, so it didn't matter. I just said I'd hit it as hard as I can, and if he saves it, fair play to him. I hit it as hard as I possibly could. And I think, under that kind of pressure, and maybe this mistake Craig Rogers made where he didn't put as much pace on it and went for the top corner, just low and hard. You remember Dear McConnelly's penalty in the All-Ireland final, like when he's under pressure with David Clark, massive man in the goals, very kind of, intimidating goalkeeper, just low and hard and to the left. That's how you generate most pace on a penalty, is go low, hard to your left. And even if a goalkeeper, guesses the right way, he's going to struggle to get across, to get across to a penalty like that. One or two other talking points for the match. I think James McGivney was sent off for a second yellow. He should have been sent off for a second yellow by David Goff in the 64th minute, but he got a second yellow, and we talked in the Ulster final about this happening, and we're completely wrong. But apparently James McGivney got 2 yellows in normal time but wasn't sent off. It was in the 64th minute. There was only 4 minutes of extra time, so it was in the very last minute. It made no impact on the game. Cian O'Sullivan got sent off. There was a black card, I thought, for Liam Flatman in the first half. Jason Matthews must be a little bit fond of a dive, because this was a terrible black card for someone to get in a Leinster final. So it was, all he did was tackle the ball, and Jason Matthews kind of threw his head back. And I've been saying this for a long time, that this is a big problem in the game. It's players making a big deal out of contact, any contact that goes over the shoulder. Players are just throwing their heads back and making it look an awful lot worse. Jason Matthews dived a little bit before that for a free. Liam Flatman did put his hand on his back, but Jason Matthews just dived out and threw his head back, and he got his free. And then a few minutes later, then he sewed Liam Flatman up rightly and got him sent off on a black card. But that's not the story of the game. It's just a small thing in it, and it's a worrying trend because they're all at it. It's not just Jason Matthews that's at it. So Mickey Graham is now going to be in the same boat as Eddie Brennan. So he is the new Cavan manager. Eddie Brennan's the new Laois manager, and they're both in All-Ireland semi-finals. So they're going to have to double job right through the winter. And Mickey Graham was interviewed and says, I'm not going to worry about that at this moment in time. And he's dead right. But he said, I'll have to sit down and gather all my thoughts and let this settle in. It's going to be one hell of a party in Mullinalaghta for the next week and up to Christmas, because what this club has done is a fairy tale. And it isn't probably the right time to ask him about that. But at the same time, it's a huge commitment for him now. And how he's going to structure his week, and how he's going to have Cavan training on the nights Mullinalaghta are not training. So when he says he's not going to worry about it, it's definitely something for him that he's going to have to worry about, because the intercounty game is a huge commitment, and to double job right into February for these All-Ireland semi-finals is definitely going to be difficult, because as we know, the league starts at the end of January. So listen, it's a good position for Mickey to be in, but definitely, listen, enjoy the next few days and then start worrying about that. But I was just thinking, watching it, and it's difficult to even understand how these upsets happen in club, because I remember back when I was kind of playing with Portlaoise in the middle of my career, O'Hanrahan's beat Nafina, and then Rathnew beat Nafina, and it was like these small clubs beating these big giants from Dublin. And Nafina at the time had Jason Sherlock, Kieran McGeaney, did a good few transfers as well. And it was, I don't know what it is about us cultures, and maybe it's just the fact that Dublin can't be beaten at intercounty level. You're looking at counties going up lambs to the slaughter to them. So when you see a little club like Mullinalaghta beating the giants of Kilmacud Crokes, I think it's just giving hope to everyone that's not from Dublin. They were trending worldwide on Twitter last night, and they're just such a small club that it's just such an absolute fantastic story. So I'm going to stop talking right now, because Mullinalaghta captain Shane Mulligan is on the line now to talk to us about the game. Shane, you asked for bonfires at the end of your speech. Did you get them?
We did. We got bonfires all the way home, so we did great reception. As soon as we even coming back into Ballinalaghta and Westmeath, and back then into Edgetown and Longford and Granard, back down into Gowan and Cavan, and then eventually we got home to Mullinalaghta, and the bonfires were burning brightly, and we had Longford Pipe Band come out and met us, and it was just great scenes, great colour and great noise, and great atmosphere, and something that I don't think anyone that witnessed it ever thought would see the like of that. But it was just an amazing occasion. amazing homecoming, and we're still buzzing here this morning. In fact, probably a little bit sweeter now that you wake up the next day, and it's like Christmas's game.
Oh, it definitely has. I didn't really know bonfires still were a thing. I knew people used to say there'd be bonfires lit, but I was looking at the 9 o'clock news last night, and there was bonfires being lit.
Yeah, well, that's it. Look, we've been lucky enough that in the last 3 years we've won the senior championship in Longford, and every year we have to come back to the crossroads as you come back into what is Mullinalaghta, and then there'll be the bonfire lit there, and it's kind of the start of the homecoming. That's where we first arrived, and we'd meet the people of the parish and things like that, and there'd be a few words said there, and a few fireworks, and the bonfire be burning brightly, and it's great atmosphere and a great occasion, and it's a great spectacle to witness.
Yeah, so Guidor have set the celebration bar very, very high, so you have a tough act to follow now this week.
Yeah, well, we'll be doing it all low key. We'll stay under the radar, That's the way we like to do it down here, Keep it all in-house, hush.
Yeah, because I was going
on what's ahead of us.
I was going to ask which one of you I should follow on Twitter to follow all the different crazy videos, but maybe that's just the Guidor thing.
Yeah, we'll keep it all low key now and hush here. I don't even know if there's Wi-Fi or anything, even though we can upload them anyway.
Because there's only two pubs in Mullinalaghta, right? So
there's only one pub in Mullinalaghta.
There's only one.
There was two. One of them is there's one closed there in the last 12 months, and the post office is closed in the last 12 months, and it's been well documented. We're saying that as other things diminish in rural Ireland, thankfully GAA around Mullinalaghta has got stronger, and it's been a really focal point for the community and the parish and things like that, and keeping people together, and days and nights and things like this are so important. Yeah, no, there's only the one pub there now in the middle of Mullinalaghta.
Right, so anyone
community centre down the school.
Anyone going to Mullinalaghta today to join the celebrations knows exactly where to find you, right?
Yeah, as long as they don't blink as they're driving through it and miss it, they'll get there. Aim for the one pub and the church, and if you're as far as the church, you might be better off going into the church, but turn around and go back. You'll be past the pub at that stage.
I was reading there today, it has been well documented, so I'm not going to get into too much about how small Mullinalaghta is. But it is the smallest club in Longford, and Longford is the second smallest, footballing county in Ireland. So to put that into context, to be able to beat Kilmacud Crokes, who are a giant in national football with a huge membership, it was almost an impossible task.
Yeah, if you look at it stats-wise and numbers-wise, but to be honest with you, it wasn't something we've ever really looked at, because even within Longford, we'd probably be pushing the boundaries to be winning championships. But, what people forget, or people don't see, is that we look at it as a very talented dressing room, and when the team sheet goes up, or the Friday night before a game, when Mickey lists the team and puts it up on the chalkboard, we look at that as a very talented and very competitive team, they probably will, going into Longford seniors, there'll probably be 7 or 8, in around the mix, probably 5, 6 stars, anyway, so there is a lot of talent there. But I suppose the question be asked, how do we produce such talent in such a small number of pool of players? But
yeah.
I guess that is really down to the hard work that's been done in underage. It's just years and years ago. We're only reaping it now, but that started, decades ago. And there's so much thanks for those people who've done that. Dan McEntee, a huge name down here, and all the underage work he's done, and that's where it's all stemmed from. And thankfully, I think the last 3 years we've seen it, but I guess now the rest of the country are starting to see it as well, and it's fantastic.
Exactly. And would you ever reference the likes of Slough who were the big story pretty much before you came along, of being a really small little community and, batting above their weight? Would you ever mention them as an inspiration?
Well, look, they were a huge story last year before, and we do look at that, but it kind of, when we came out of Longford, our first goal was, I suppose, 3 years ago, try and get over the line and win the senior championship. We hadn't won one from, in over 60 odd years, back into the 50s, and we were trying to get that. And then, I guess when we came out of Longford and we competed in Leinster, we realised we weren't that far off. We beat St. Lomas, a huge team in Mullinalaghta, and got over them, and we came short against St. Vincent and things like that. And we realised, we're not that far away, that the talent is there, and if we keep it all together and push on, that I know stats, and we might look that we're up against and against the odds, but we feel that we've a very competitive dressing room and that we could compete with the bigger teams. And I know when you put it in context of membership numbers and panels and player or teams and all that, yeah, it looks like we're punching considerably. But we only ever look to be as competitive as we have, and we believe there's a lot of talent in there, and that we can.
Yeah, I know you definitely can, and you've got really big, important, players in really important positions as well. I'd say, like, at half time, you must have been concerned though, Shane. Like, I mean, that was a very, very strong wind, and really, it was a 4 or 5 point win. You know what I mean? Like, I know you were saying you were the only ones that believed you could win it, but even at half time, like, I can imagine that dressing room was like, Jesus, lads, you're thinking we haven't done enough here.
Yeah. Like I think, as any GAA player, and you'd understand, when you're going in, we were playing with the win in the first half, and it was a strong win, as you said, a 4 or 5 point. You did want to be going in with your nose in front because, because of the strength of the wind and having to play against it, you're going to tire that much, and it's hard to get the scores. But there was a couple of things. Look, we were still in the game. We knew that with 15 or 20 minutes to go, if we were still in the game, that we wouldn't be that far away. So. There's huge hunger and passion in that dressing room. So, as you said there, like, we came in at half time, of course we would have wanted to be a couple of points up, and fair play to Kilmacud. They did exactly what a team playing with the win would want to be doing. They got their nose in front and they pushed it from 2 to 3 points out, and then we were out in our legs at that stage, and we were carrying ball and we were getting turned over. But I guess the thing was is we just were at that stage in the middle of the second half, we were just hanging in there. We just weren't going to let go. We didn't want it. We knew that if we could just stay in the game, don't let 3 turn into 5 or 6 or 7 or 10, just hang in there. That that you could get that lucky break. And then there was a couple of turning factors. David McGivney kicked a great point, which brought it back to 2. And then we were no longer hanging in there. We were starting to reel them back in, and then Then we started chasing them down and got a turnover and a huge overlap then by Donny McGalligan, and we found ourselves in the penalty area and got the crucial penalty, and then fair play to Gary Rogers stepped up and tucked it away. And then once we got our nose in front, it just came at the right time, 58 minutes on the clock.
Yeah.
That once Gary put it away, that I knew then we were going to hang in there, then we'd close it out.
But I think everybody knew at that stage, because you get that penalty, and then I'm thinking, Jesus, there's 4 minutes of injury time, it's going to be backs to the wall stuff, but it actually wasn't. You finished much stronger. It's like that penalty, Kilmacud wilted, and you grew, considerably.
Yeah, and that was it. Once they didn't get more than 3 points and we're in the game, and then once they didn't get out of sight and we turned it then and we got our nose in front, that cost them percentages and it gains us percentage, and it just flips on its head. Suddenly when you're out on your feet and you're struggling, it gives you a lift, and it puts the squeeze on them, and we pushed on. Then you could see that there was a new energy found. A couple of turnovers, we start getting the turnovers and we start putting that, and we got to the scores even. We could have probably tagged on another point there. Jimmy sold 2 dummies when one would have done, could have took that over and would have put, but Aidan composed himself and put another insurance point, and we even won the next couple of kickouts. So I kind of knew once we found ourselves in positions like that before, where once they'd be relatively composed, but once we got our nose in front with that time on the clock, and you're looking down the barrel of a gun, that I knew that we'd have enough to see it home.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable. I think you're right for mentioning the David McGivney point, because it wasn't just a good point, it was a sensational one against the wind, and he drove it over the bar, lovely bit of curl on it, right. and you hadn't looked like scoring, like you were struggling to get through that, because exactly. I thought Kilmacud left a good few men back behind the ball, which I thought was strange, but you struggled to get through it. That point got you within 2, and I think that put a doubt in Kilmacud's mind. Suddenly a goal was going to hurt them, and it did.
Yeah, that was a huge turning point. You look at turning point in the game, that's it. We were under the caution in the middle of the second half. We were struggling against the breeze. We were carrying ball forward. They had men behind the ball. We were struggling to penetrate, and we were getting turned over.
Yeah.
But that was the point where once that went over, we were no longer hanging in there. We were chasing them down. We were reeling them back in. We were back to 2. And then we knew even, you get another point, we could pull this back to draw. But 2 points, coming onto a closing game is a deadly score to be ahead of, because, there is always that panic sets in, or, a goal in the thing. And just give us that impetus to go on and get that penalty. So it was a huge turning point and a huge score, because we had missed a few before that and got turned over for a few before that. So hats off, and there was some huge moments, and that's what you want on big days. Men stand up and put their hand up and take ownership of it and show leadership and push on, and thankfully we had them men yesterday.
Yeah, no, definitely. I want to talk to you quickly about the penalty, because I don't think Gary Rogers is even your first choice penalty taker. I was hearing after the game yesterday, but David Nestor, we know Craig Rogers missed one. Well, I know plenty about this for Portlaoise, and David Nestor said after the game that, look, at my age I can only really dive one way.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus Christ. And then Gary just stuck to the same way that Craig Rogers went, and David Nestor almost talked himself out of it and went the other way, probably thinking Gary would go the other way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. I don't know. That's going to be talked about anyway in some meeting now after this anyway, because I don't know, was that in the script to go that way, because we had heard that interview and we had heard that. So I don't know. Gary just did. Took ownership, or maybe he's seen something in his eyes that he said, this lad's going the other way. I don't really know. To be honest with you, I only seen the clip last night. I watched it when I came home, and I watched it on the internet, because I actually didn't even look at the penalty in real time. I was looking the other way. I said, I can't stomach this. I can't even look at this now. And I said, we'll wait for the cheer. But then when the cheer went up, I didn't know whether it was a save or a goal, so there could be cheer for anything. So I had to turn around. But luckily there was a green flag flying anyway. So and then after that, I said, what way did he go? And he put it to his bottom. I put it to keep his bottom right. And I said, that's the wrong way. He was supposed to go the other way. Yeah, I know, but I went in anyway. No, I don't know. I didn't even get talking to Gary really last night. It was mayhem. But so I'll have a word with him later on and see. Maybe we need to clarify left and right going forward, or maybe he's seen something that we didn't see. But
well, it's just,
thankfully, either way, look at it.
Yeah, it's
I
just
seen
as
it
well.
go in anyway. I don't think he would have got to it either. It was a brilliant penalty. It was tucked right into the corner with enough pace, and it was nice and low. I think even if he had went that way, he wouldn't have got hands to it anyway. Yeah,
so that's it. So it was I don't think he would have saved it. It was a brilliant penalty, but he double bluffed everybody then. So Nestor thought, right, well I've planted that seed now, so I know where he's going to go. All of you told him probably to go that way, and he was the only man not listening to everybody else.
Yeah. Maybe he heard something that we didn't hear. I don't know.
He must be a poker player, is he, Gary?
He must be something like that. Well, yeah, it's hard to know what Gary's thinking at the time, but he obviously had it in his own head. Maybe he was comfortable, and he says, look, whether you go this or not, I'll be tucking it just in that corner, and you won't be getting it either. I don't know, but Donny would usually take a penalty. He's carrying a bit of a knock, and so since he came into Leinster, he hasn't. No, even actually in the Longford Championship, he didn't take a penalty there. So Gary, in fairness, put his hand up and says, look, if we get one, I'll step up to it, and fair play to him. That's actually his first one he's taken for us now in a while, but we'll leave him at it now, I'd say. And if we get another one, we probably won't even tell him what to do, because he's going to do his own thing.
No,
anyway.
He'll definitely do his own thing. Come here, why do you think upsets like this happen at club level? I know the conditions definitely contribute to it to a bit, but is there that club spirit that the county teams just cannot replicate and cannot have that kind of drive? How do these shocks happen at club level, and we very rarely see them at county level?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. It's hard to know. It's hard to put your finger on it. I don't know. It's with the club thing. It's been progression. It's been hard work. It's been this hasn't happened this week, or it hasn't happened this year. It hasn't even happened in the last 3 years. It hasn't. If you look in depth into what these lads have achieved, I'd be one of the most senior players on the team, and if you go back into Dave McGivney and Ryan Brady and Jason and Aidan McGallagher and them, they've been very successful through underage with Northern Gales under 14, and that's down to the underage structure and the coaches and the time that's been invested in them, right from under 12 into under 14, under 16, and bringing them up, and that means then that they can express themselves and play the quality football that they are. But yeah, county things, I suppose county teams, managers change and panels flip, and there's players in and players commit and players don't commit, and I guess that's been one thing we can say about Mullinalaghta is that lads commit, and they've stuck in there, and they've really bought into the last 3 years, really, and no one's went away, and everyone has stuck with the cause. And even actually prior to the 3 years before we were successful, it was head down and keep plugging along and keep trying to better yourself and better the club and better the panel and that. And I guess then that's how we got to where we are. And I don't know. It's hard to how you fix it for the county and things like that. I don't know. I don't know. There's it's just, it really is hard work and underage. And I suppose, if you even ask anyone from Dublin how they've been, they'll always say it's been underage, what they've produced, and the conveyor belt that keeps coming from their underage system. So they're obviously doing something very, very right in their underage structure. So that's what you really need to target is underage. That you mightn't see it next year, but hopefully in 10 or 12 years you'll see it coming down the line. Yeah, no, and I have to apologise. That was a very difficult question for someone who has a hangover after winning a really big. Yeah, how did I answer? Does that sound alright? It was okay. It was a little bit rambling, but look, it was all right. I blame myself. It was a tough question. But come here, listen to me. Come here, like it led the 9 o'clock news last night, and like you were trending worldwide on Twitter. Like it really has put the club on the map. Like there's no doubt about this. There's no one that doesn't know. Like I mean, maybe we'll all be able to pronounce it properly very, very soon. Yeah. Well, that's in the parish, so you could get 3 or 4 different pronunciations within the parish, depending on who you're talking. Oh, could you? Well, that's good news. Yeah, so we won't hold it against you, but it's been phenomenal. Like the stuff that's going up on the team WhatsApp, there from you've Leo Radke commenting on it. It's just everywhere there. I was listening. We're having the breakfast here. I was listening on the news there, and then they're talking Mullinalaghta, and then in other sporting news, Munster beat Castles. It's like it's crazy stuff. It's just crazy what. The way it's taken off, but it's great fun and it's great, And the thankful thing is, we're not out now until next February or in this competition, so we can kind of savour it right over the Christmas and everything. Yeah, no, listen, it's brilliant for supporters and players and everything. And listen, come here, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us, Shane. Enjoy the celebrations. No, thanks, Colm, and keep doing what you're doing. Thanks a lot, Shane. I appreciate that, mate. All right, brilliant stuff from Shane there. Now, we have to move on because I was in Moore Park on Saturday night and I watched Laois and Meath, and it was obviously the first day of the new rules, and Andy McEntee is coming up in the next section to actually run through some of the rules. But I quite enjoyed it. Like, I mean, it was more end-to-end than we're used to. Very difficult in these conditions when you kick a ball into a full forward line. Laois left 3 fellas in the full forward line, and when a defender is right up behind you and boxing and punching you or tackling you, the ball is going to slip, and you might lose possession. But that's what this is trying to encourage. It's trying to encourage more kicking during the summer in better conditions, when you have more movement and when you have more teams more adept at the new tactics, because it's all new now. It's ripped up the script. These balls will stick a little bit more, so you'll have a much more idea of your game plan with these new rules. So, I thought it worked well. If you actually sent someone to Moore Park who knew nothing about these new rules, they might not really even notice too much difference, outside of the fact that maybe the hand pass one, when that gets blown up, they would have noticed that. Very few sideline balls, no fouls from sideline balls, very few marks. I think only 2 marks in the whole game. Again, the conditions had a huge effect on that. And I think in general they're a success and not the huge nightmare that everybody was talking about. Now, apparently in Dr. Colm Park there was an awful lot of kicking 3 and 4 metres because by all accounts Carlow didn't adapt at all to these new rules and were continuing on those same tactics, and after the third hand pass they were maybe kicking it 3 or 4 metres. You saw that a couple of times in the Laois game, but very, very rarely, because Laois and Meath were leaving enough men in front of the ball that they would have some sort of options to move it on with the foot. And anyways, you shouldn't always be waiting until the third hand pass. The minute you get the ball, you should be looking. You have 4 steps. You can look around the field and see what's on. Hand passes should only be used to get you out of trouble, and you're allowed 3 of them. It should be more than enough to get out into free space and then move the ball on up the field. So, I'm more enthusiastic about this hand pass restriction than I ever was. And the sooner managers and players get out of their comfort zone and forget about passing the buck to somebody else and just hand passing across for the sake of it, the better.
So saw Turlough O'Brien was interviewed afterwards, and like Carlow have too much to say on this as far as I'm concerned. What I think that Carlow are doing is they're psyching themselves out of a league, which is really important. Like, I mean, if this is what's going on in their training sessions, this kind of attitude, well then they're not going to have a very good league. They're going to go straight back down to Division 4. These rules are in and they will be in the league, so I think they're going to have to deal with it. Turlough O'Brien was saying there's a lot of ball being turned over. That's the big thing. Players are indecisive. They're getting caught up because they can't use the hand pass. Yes, players are indecisive because now they have to be brave and they have to move the ball on and they can't just pass it on. He says this game is played at a very fast pace and you only have a split second to make up your mind if the hand pass is on or you're going to get closed down very quickly. Lads are kicking the ball because they have to and getting turned over. Again, I don't agree with having a split second to make up your mind. If that's like the ball on the third hand pass, you should be out into space. That's if you're using that hand pass well and you're supporting the man on the ball. If you use your 3 hand passes and you're not out into clear road, well then there's something wrong, you know. So like, I mean, I don't think that's the situation. And there's usually lads popping up free for a ball if you have enough on the half forward line. So like, I mean, it's just a different mindset. And in fairness to Carlow, the new rules were brought in to try and end the tactics they use. So I can completely understand where they're coming from and being completely against these rules because their game plan has just been ripped up and now they have to try a new one. But it was obvious from the Meath Laois game that, you know, managers have to leave more forwards up front so they have options for the kick pass when you're out into that clear road and you've used your hand pass to gain yourself a little bit, then you're scanning the field and you have to move it on up the field. So without a half forward line and a full forward line, you're gone. And we said this on the show. So managers are going to have to coach good movement to make sure that when the defender's coming out with the ball and they got into that clear space, somebody's breaking free. So movement on the half forward line is going to have to start being coached like movement on the full forward line. There has to be lads breaking and getting free to be available for that kick pass and then work off that. And definitely the message to players is stop putting all the responsibility on the man who gets the third hand pass having to kick. The minute you receive a hand pass, you should be looking to kick it yourself. And stop this, well, I've just received it, or I've just received a kick pass, well, I'm definitely going to hand pass it now. No, that's only putting too much pressure on the fella who gets the third hand pass. You have to keep teams guessing and stop making them know, right, well, we're literally going to take our 3 and then in desperation kick it. That's too easy to defend against. But again, this is going to evolve and there are new rules and it's going to take a full league to actually have managements and have players come up with the best strategy that is there. John Sugru, after the game, actually, he says the rules are fine. He has some issues with the refereeing of the rules. He said in the first half he called a mark for a Meath defensive mark, but he didn't put his hand in the air. I remember that mark. That wasn't. Is it not like how do you put your hand in the air? Like, I mean, I wasn't sure about putting your hand in the air. Like, if you catch a mark, then the whistle's blown. Is it not like the midfield mark? Maybe I'm missing something there. He said in the second half we got a mark which he didn't get didn't get a whistle. He said it's a completely new concept. The referees are trying to watch out for different things. So, like, I mean, John Sugru wasn't very critical. Jack Cooney kind of not really sure what to think of it. A lot of kick passes were short. I don't know if that's the outcome. What the outcome should be. Well, it shouldn't be that. And you're not going to get very far if your tactics are around 3 hand passes and then a little dribbly foot pass, because teams are just going to push up on you and make you look stupid. So, like, I mean, this is just O'Byrne Cup with second string teams is not a good test of how these are going to work, because Carlow didn't care if they lost that game, you know, but they will care if they lose a league game. So the big test is a league game, and Carlow absolutely won't be dribbly passing it like that and not leaving enough forwards up like they did at the weekend. He says, I don't know if it changed the format or the structure of the game an awful lot. First day out, we just have to stick with it and view it and see what it's like. I think in general, I don't think the quality of the game was any better or worse as a result of the new rules. So that's it. It's a little bit of an underwhelming start, and not the controversy that everyone's predicting. It just seemed to be a little bit more end-to-end without any drama and any kind of huge change to the game. It's still Gaelic football. So it's not this huge change everybody was saying that it was. So far, again, I can't judge it just on one game that I was at. But there was no panic stations, and Jack Cooney's saying the same thing. it's not really anything to panic about. But anyways, listen, we'll talk to Andy McEntee and see what he thinks of it. We'll talk to him next. All right, so Meath hammered Laois in Moore Park in the first competitive game under the new rules, and Andy McEntee joins us on the line now. So congratulations on the win, Andy. You must be a huge fan of these new rules now after a win like that.
Oh, I'm sure that stands out a mile that I'm a huge fan. But look, it was a bad night, so it's maybe as a start off, it's probably not a great guide, given some of the things that we're looking at. But it was good to get off the ground and get a decent enough performance in. What
kind of work have you been putting into these new rules? Like, I presume a lot of 15 against 15, and actually, there's not really drills you can do for this. It's nearly have to just game situations in training, is it?
Yeah, look, we haven't been putting a huge amount. We're talking about it and trying to make guys aware of exactly what the rules are, and it's there's still a certain amount of uncertainty around some of them. We still weren't sure, I think, at one stage on Saturday evening whether a sideline ball was allowed to go backward inside the 14-yard line or the 21-yard line. Maybe you could clarify that for me.
I think that's out to the 21 now. I think originally it was at the 14.
Yeah, well, I had a linesman telling me it was the 14, and I thought it was the 21. Now, we're both showing our age here. We're talking about yards, obviously, as opposed to metres. But again, there's still uncertainty about that.
Yeah.
Even from some of the officials. So I think it's just trying to make fellas aware of it. And I was interested to see somebody did some stats. I think we were the culprits more in the second half than we were in the first half with regard to the three hand pass rule. I think Laois transgressed a few more times in the first half than we did, but it was the other way around in the second half. So it's just trying to get fellas used to playing in competition at pace and still being aware of the new rules is probably the challenge.
Yeah, I think my main takeaway, and I take your point, is like that just horrible conditions. And I know you're against trialling him in the league, but you were actually had a weaker team out than Laois had, but it's very, very hard in those conditions in December when teams aren't on full strength. And let's be honest, most teams, they're the interest they have in the Byrne Cup will be pretty low. It's not really a great competition to get, a good flavour of how these are going to bed in. I do take your point that the league is a bit more serious, but without it being a serious competition, how can we really know if they work or not?
I take what you're saying. I think Saturday night was an exceptionally poor night.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't read too much into Saturday night. Whether fellas were being picked up or not, to try and get a mark on Saturday night was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And that's the one rule that probably concerns me more than the others. The three hand pass, I could take or leave it. I'd like it tweaked a little bit, but as a sample size, given the conditions, Saturday night is probably a poor one to go by. I get what you're saying. If you want to get a better reflection, it has to be over a longer time and over a bigger sample size. But my real concern is the importance of the league. The league, for 80% of the teams, at least probably 80% of the teams, is the competition that counts most throughout the year, and you're making an experiment out of it.
Yeah.
And we're still not sure. I think we're going to have to wait till maybe 7 days before the start of the league whether we know any of these rules are going to be carried into the league or not. I think that's a bit unsatisfactory.
Well, I do take your point on that. That's I think the GPA rattled enough cages to say they're going to be reviewed. I think they'll be in the league. I think people need to forget about the idea that they won't be in. But I do take your point. What are you practicing in training? Are you practicing the new rules or the old rules? And you won't know until a week before the league starts what you're supposed to be doing, which is a bit of a crazy situation.
It is, yeah. And then you come out of the league, and then we're back to the old rules.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's I don't see that. That's not satisfactory. And look at, I mean, if you look at the a lot of the worst games of last year, would they have or the year gone by, would they have happened in the league or would they have happened in the championship? Do you think?
Yeah.
I think the majority of them were probably in the championship, would they?
Yeah, well, I suppose, listen, it's hard to know. You wouldn't see all league games. Like, I mean, there's some terrible games in both. But I think the principle of this hand passing thing, Andy, and I know you say your big problem isn't really with that one, but like, I mean, coming from a traditional county of your style of football, like, I mean, getting that ball in there now on the and my kind of thing on this is that a lot of players, and from watching the game, they're waiting for the third hand pass to kick it. Like, I mean,
Yes.
that's just putting too much pressure on the fella that gets it the third time. Like, the fella who gets it you should always be looking for a kick. The idea with this is that your first instinct should be move it on with the foot, and there should be lads up ahead of you breaking, looking for those kick passes. If that's not on, you can take a hand pass. But like, the idea was like the fella on Saturday night, the third lad was just sold down the river that he was, all the pressure was being put on him.
Yes, and you have everybody shouting home, you got to kick it, you got to kick it.
Yeah.
Kick it. And it's not ideal. I mean, you could still say, well, look, you could still run with it.
Yeah.
You could still solo it and you can still hop it. You don't have to kick it. But when you have everybody shouting in your ear, kick it, it makes it difficult. I get that. Now, look, I suppose one of the things you say, what is the purpose of the new rules? Why are we looking for new rules? And one of the real issues is you're trying to do away with mass defences. Is that fair to say?
I would say it's the endless sequences of hand passing outside a defensive screen. So it's a combination of the solution to the mass defences is to hand pass outside them and wait and be patient, and it all adds up to a boring enough spectacle, I suppose.
Yes, but I suppose then I'd ask you, once you get into the scoring zone, how do you outmaneuver a mass defence except through a series of quick hand passing to get yourself a room to take a shot?
Yeah, but I don't think there will be mass defences in this though, Andy, because if when you turn the ball over, you can't run it out through the hands. You have to have fellas ahead of the ball, at the end of the hand passing. So, like, I think that there just won't be those mass defences that we're used to.
Oh, well, I'd argue the other side of it now, to tell you the truth, because I'd say, can I afford to allow a big, strong fella catch a ball inside 45 metres? Can't afford it because it's a score.
Yeah, but the big,
so
strong...
I'm going to play, you're going to have to play somebody in front of them and someone behind them. And your main threat, if that's what's going to happen here, I think, contrary to what we're trying to avoid, it could add to, we're going to have very low scoring games. Because you would say, okay, well, I can't afford to let somebody catch the ball inside the 45 metre line.
But my thought on that would be, would it not make more sense to not give that good, easy kick pass in? Because good diagonal balls are hard to defend against anyway. So if you're back double marking fellas, you're going to be leaving a fella with loads of time to pick out a pass, and you might get caught for that mark anyways. You see, like, I mean, you've got, that's a fair enough theory, and I've got a theory, and I genuinely don't think we will know until you play 7, 8, 9 games, and you kind of try out that, and that might not work, and then you figure out, well, that's not the way to go. Like, I mean, I don't think we'll know maybe until the end of the league.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. I think if you're testing anything, you got to take as big a sample size as possible to get a true reflection on what way it's going to work out. But then I come back to what I'm saying is, you're making the league an experiment.
Yeah,
the National League has now become an experiment.
Yeah, unless they were to cancel all relegations and stuff like that for 1 year, but then maybe teams mightn't take it as seriously.
Well, that's what I'd be saying. Okay, if the league, if this is an experiment, well then, at the end of the experiment, some of the rules will be adopted, some of them won't, and now you're being punished or you've been rewarded for playing a game that's not going to be carried forward.
Yeah.
So the results of the league become almost irrelevant.
Yeah. So maybe a solution on the 19th is to say, okay, there's no such thing as relegations. Like, you can still play a league final because no one's going to complain if for whoever wins it, it's whoever gets relegated will have the big problem, I suppose.
That's the bit, and it mightn't be a true reflection on the way football is going to be played next year, or the league is going to be played, or the championship is going to be played next year.
Yeah, I do.
So it dulls the relevance of the league, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, maybe it does. I do, I mean, just from watching the game the other night, and I said this in the last part of the show, if you were brought into a Moore Park and you knew nothing about the hullabaloo about these new rule changes, outside of the hand pass, you wouldn't have noticed, being blown for the 3 hand passes, you wouldn't have known a huge difference outside. It was a little bit livelier end to end because Laois were trying to kick it in a lot, and obviously the ball wasn't sticking, so it was coming back down the other end of the field.
Yeah, well, that's true. I wouldn't say you'd pick up. There was maybe, I don't know, was there half a dozen or maybe slightly more hand pass rule.
About that, yeah.
Rule break. Yeah, about that, I'd say. And you might say, well, what was that about? But I go back to we had a goal opportunity early in the second, or in the first half, halfway through the first half, and I had a midfielder coming in on goal, and he had a corner forward beside him, and I'm sure he took the shot because he thought, is that 2 hand passes? Is that 3 hand passes?
I remember that. I remember that. I was actually asking I was asking in the press room, was he on the last one? Why didn't he give it to the fella beside him?
Yes, that's what I was asking too. By the way. But the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. It is difficult. It's like anything else, hopping it twice or taking too many steps. Maybe players get used to it.
Yeah, I think they will get used to it. I don't think it changes the game that much. I do think, Andy, I don't know whether it's your, I remember seeing it in the Leinster Club final. There's so much pass in the book, just hand passing it to a fella beside you just for the sake of it. Instead of going, right, well, I have to make something happen here. It has got into the game where there's too many fellas on the field in a serious comfort zone where they take no responsibility.
I agree. I don't have a huge problem with the hand pass rule. My biggest concern with the hand pass rule is that it'd almost encourage you to have too many defenders back there, because someone's going to have to take a shot here. They're going to have to kick the ball. So if we have enough of a blanket defence, we're going to force teams to kick the ball from outside of 60 yards.
Yeah. See, I guess when they can't work their way through you in a blanket defence by a series of short hand passes. And if you look at most of the areas of the pitches where these rules, where the 3 hand pass is going to break down, it's probably close to goals. Yeah, but that's the thing, and that's Conan on the show. That's his theory on it, and I always say to him, and that's fine. It absolutely makes sense because you will get joy doing that. But when you win the ball back yourself, then how do you get the ball out the field? Because you've no one ahead of the ball, and you have to kick it on your third one. Do you know if you're put under pressure when you win the ball back, then you've got no real attacking game plan. So you have to find a balance between absolutely that defensive tactics will get you joy, but then you've got no joy going forward yourself. So you have to find a balance between the two.
Yeah, I say the more you see of it, the more it'll maybe follow some sort of a pattern. But again, I don't see. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest goal I ever scored was Kevin Foley's goal against Dublin in '91. Yeah, and I think it was five, maybe 6 hand passes. Now I get what you're saying. They weren't lateral; they went backwards. They were going forward. I just have a concern that the area of the pitch that it's going to affect most is at the scoring end. Yeah. And it's going to reduce the scoring rate.
I hope
because I think teams will ultimately say, okay, they can kick. They're going to have to kick the ball. Stand off them. They're going to hand pass. Now we push up. They're going to have to kick it, and you're going to end up having a lot more shots from outside than from inside.
Yeah, maybe. But see, again, that's the thing. Like, football has evolved so much over 100 years. Now we need to see new rules. We need to see it evolving over only 7 or 8 games to make a call on it. Do you know what I mean? So it is a difficult one because there's so much changing.
No, I think the thing that my biggest concern is the mark inside 45 metres. It becomes, I think we'll get over the 3-hand pass rule. I've heard other people talk about maybe extending it to 4-hand passes. One way or the other, I think that's doable. But the mark inside 45 metres makes this a game of Aussie rules.
Yeah, AFL, I agree. My idea was the mark inside the 21, and I think that's a good encouragement to give the odd long ball in and try and be rewarded for a fetch in there. I completely disagree with extending it out to the 45. I don't understand the logic behind that at all.
But the other thing that annoys me a little bit is the process by which this was done. Initially, there was consultation with players, with managers. They got feedback. There was a trial period. There was a number of college games, and we played a game, and there was feedback. Obviously, the feedback wasn't hugely positive. They asked the rules committee to come back with a set of alternatives. They come back with a set of alternatives, and they went, "Yeah, okay, we'll run with that."
Yeah.
No consultation, no trial period, and even as it stands, even one of those rules that was adopted, which is the kick out from the 20-metre line, I understand that wasn't proposed by anybody. So that was just made up on the day. Somebody made that one up on the day.
Right. The kick out one was changed a few times, like it wasn't workable the first time. I think the mark after this, but because there was no marks, I think he had one a defender got. There was no marks. Laois got none. And I was reading in the Carlow Westmeath one, there was hardly any marks. I think one in the whole game as well. So I think in January the 19th, I think that'll go back inside the 21. And maybe if the hand pass went to 4, I'm easy. I think when you change your mentality from the safe hand pass to the kick pass, you'll get over that easily. It's rare that after 3 hand passes that you can't get out into enough space that it depends then what options are in front of you.
I think coming out the field, you're absolutely right. There should be an option there to kick. It's once you get close to goals and more bodies around, that's where you need a couple of short hand passes.
Yeah.
So my idea, okay, well look at let's that rule operates between the 250s, say. But again, we're asking more and more referees as well, which makes it. And I think what you were saying, the mark inside the 21. The experience we had was that referees were finding it hard to judge. Is he inside the 21 or is he outside the 21? So if it's a quick enough attack and it's instructed, he catch that inside or outside the 21.
Right.
I think that was one of the issues that they were finding at the time. It was hard to be sure where exactly he is on the pitch.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that any different than a square ball? How did it do that? With an umpire not be able to help out?
Point.
Yeah.
Fair point. But the mark inside the 45, I don't know where that came from.
No, that's AFL. You're right. It's AFL. It's not Gaelic football. You can't just stop a good move and call a mark at 45 metres out and kick a point. That's not a flowing game.
Well, here's a scenario for you. You've got someone like who the best kick out in the business, longest kick out.
Began.
Began.
Yeah.
He kicks it out. It's caught in the middle of the field or 70 yards out. He turns around and he kicks it to somebody inside the 40-metre line, like Michael Murphy. And on both occasions, you got to step off. You got to let him kick the ball. He kicks it. You step off. You let him kick the ball, and it's kicked over the bar. So you got 2 kicks, and it's over the bar.
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody. Nobody wants running. That. Yeah. I don't think.
And it becomes a series of stop start.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants that. I think hopefully they'll change that back. It was good for you to have Mickey Newman back just before I let you go. A good big scoring forward with a bit of size. It's almost exactly what you want there at number 14.
Yes, yeah, and again now I suppose it's hard for anybody to try and hold on to a ball. But it's good to have Mickey back. He's had a series of small niggling injuries. Some of them not that small either, but obviously with his experience and his ability, we could do with as many of those fellas as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Come here, I won't keep you any longer. We might ring you after the league here, see what you think.
All right, cheers, Colm.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, so Paddy Power performance of the weekend. First nomination is Paddy Fox. So Paddy Fox played fullback, and he was given the task of marking Paul Mannion, and he did a brilliant job. So he was he's a big, strong, physical fullback that I think in this weather and these conditions you can't bounce the ball. I think that makes it much easier for defenders to be able to get a hand in. And once you get a hand in and you're big and strong like Paddy, you can hold him up, and Mannion can't really use his pace and can't really go around him, because to go around him you have to get a little bit of contact, and Paddy's so strong. He stopped trying to take him on. Mannion looked like he was getting really frustrated. He was rattled, he was complaining to the referee. They weren't frees. Like, Paddy showed an awful lot of discipline in the way he tackled. He was outstanding. Discipline, stood him up. Once got that contact in to give Mannion enough information, as in, don't come past me, you're not going to be able. And Mannion knew in the conditions and the soggy underground that he wasn't going to be able to go past him. So Mannion doesn't have a huge playmaking aspect to his game, so he was kind of rattled. No doubt about that. I think there was an incident in the second half under the stand where Paddy tackled him fairly enough. I think it was actually a sideline ball for Mullinalaghta. It was given to Kilmacud Crokes. Maybe it was even given as a free. It wasn't a free at all, and Paddy Fox celebrated it under the stand, and it just summed up the whole day for him. He was outstanding. Really, really good. Now, how Paddy would get on Mannion in Croke Park on a dry day, who gives a shit? Because it wasn't a dry day, and it wasn't in Croke Park. It was a club Leinster final in Tullamore on a terrible day. And listen, that was the cards that were dealt, and Paddy was man of the match in the game, and he was outstanding. Rian Brady, he scored 3 first half points. He's a little will-o'-the-wisp. He's so elusive, so jinky. When he has his back to goal, he's got a brilliant jink that he doesn't turn the way you think he's going to turn. He doubles back the other way, and he does it so kind of fast that a lot of players, you see, you probably don't know too much about him. He's young, and he was with Longford's. I think he was with Longford for the first time last year. He's been on the 3 in a row for Mullinalaghta. He was outstanding as well. A really, really likeable little player, always trying to do something positive with it. He was all over the field as well, even though he's trying to play up front. Scored that point inside the first minute. Brilliant looping, long range point, which are not easy in those conditions. His other 2 points, you could almost say he'd be very disappointed with his finish for his second point, which he put it over the bar. He had to go around the goalkeeper there. There was so much space to run into. Any sort of a jink and he was gone past him. He went for the goal straight away, and it went over the bar. You would say he took the wrong option there, and then he got the long range point that bounced over the bar. But that was the right option anyways, trying to give it inside, because we're getting some joy from that long ball. Giving it in. So he played for Longford corner forward last year against Meath when they beat them, so he has made his breakthrough. Probably needs to do a little bit of strength and conditioning to get it the inter-county scene, because with that jink and with that accuracy off both feet, he looks like a really good player, very likeable player. James McGivney was brilliant the whole way through the game, so strong. When they're trying to break that gain line in the second half, there was a lot of Mullinalaghta players. Shane Mulligan was taking on responsibility. There was a lot of them, especially in fairness to Gary Rogers, who put away the penalty. He just passed it backwards nearly every time he got the ball, which was very frustrating. He refused to take anyone on. Now, maybe he doesn't have the pace, but James McGivney was taking them on. He was taking the game to them, and was a bit like Scottstown the week before, that there was a lot of passing the book, and you're just waiting for the bigger inter-county or ex-inter-county like Shane Mulligan's to kind of come on the ball, because you know that they'll be brave enough to take it through the tackle and try and make something happen. So James McGivney, outstanding, really good all day. David McGivney, what an inspirational point. I was talking to, obviously Shane mentioned this, and they talk about inspiration and, moments in a game, and this is 3 points down and not looking like they could get a point from play at all. And then he gets through and kicks a point against a really strong wind. And again, there's certain points that are just points, and then there's inspirational points. And that was an inspirational one with the timing of it. And it was the manner in which the defiance, the way he drove that ball over the bar and set it way out right and curled it back in around to the left. But he was inspirational right throughout the game. He was outstanding in the midfield. He was the driving force. And in fairness to Kilmacud Crokes, their midfield, they have got problems in midfield. Like Craig Diaz is good on the ground, but he struggles badly aerially. He doesn't have a fetching game. Portlaoise dominated them, absolutely dominated them in midfield in the semi-final. And if those short kickouts, which they bunch for, which Portlaoise fell for, if they don't work, then they're struggling when they get to midfield. So David McGivney, he was outstanding. So all the performance of the weekend nominations are from Mullinalaghta. Shane Mulligan was outstanding as well, driving force, taking the ball out of pace. He was really good too. We have to give a shout out to Daniel O'Reilly, Laois footballer from Gracullen. So he made his comeback to the Laois colours on Saturday night and got a really big cheer from the stand. So he hadn't played for Laois since he was assaulted in April. It was after the league final when Laois beat Carlow. He's from Gracullen, so he goes out in Carlow and he got assaulted and he was fighting for his life. So everyone in Gracullen and in Laois was very worried about him, and he's made a brilliant recovery and he's back on the field in the same year, lining out for Laois. So it was absolutely fantastic. I think he came on for Stephen Atroyd. So I think definitely Danny deserves a mention. So who we give performance of the week to, it's hard to look past Paddy Fox. He was just brilliant. He was outstanding. Really good interview then after the match. And again, I think, and this was the thing, David Seal did well on Paul Mannion in the semi-final, but Mannion still scored 3 points. I think he scored 3 from play, 5 in total. Paddy Fox completely wrapped him up. Now, obviously, the conditions, it was a back stay, but that's neither here nor there. He still had to take care of Mannion. Mannion still did it on bad days in the Dublin Club Championship. So, Paddy Fox absolutely deserves Paddy Power performance of the weekend. Right, that's it. Hope I did all right on my own today. Maybe we'll give Conan his P45. It depends. I'll have to listen to it back. Probably wasn't great, let's be honest. But anyways, the two lads, Connor and Conan, are back. We're going to do a Woolly Awards on Thursday, so we'll put that out. And then we're going to be down to one podcast a week until the league starts. I think that's going to be preview shows in around the 25th of January or something like that, the Thursday before the league starts. So we're down to one a week over the Christmas because you've better things to be doing, let's be honest. And anyways, before that, we'll talk to you on Thursday for a Woolly Awards. So we talk to you then. Good luck.